Oh, Tennessee has started to make some waves in recruiting this summer and getting some prospects and a lot of local prospects. But nationally, they haven't, I guess, garnered that national ranking yet. What do they have to do, or who are some of the guys that they have to land that can really, push them into, say, the top 15, top 10?
Well, I think with Tennessee, and I'm gonna mention Sal Sunseri, their new defensive coordinator. One of the reasons why he was hired is because he is such a prominent recruiter on a nationwide basis. I've always felt you place a lot of judgment on how good of a recruiter a guy is when he's got to go into somebody else's backyard to pull a player away, maybe from that hometown team. And so, I think you'll see that come to fruition over the course of time. With 13 verbal commitments right now, what I like about this class is that they are continuing to enhance their trenches, whether it's in the offensive front, guys like Austin Sanders, guys, like Dan Skipper, or the defensive front, Jason Carr as a defensive tackle, Cameron Miles as a safety. They're building the team from the inside out. And, time will tell if they're able to go out and finish the deal. I always call recruiting a marathon, not a sprint. And so there's going to be a long way to go down the stretch here. But it'll be interesting to see, how things unfold once kids start taking official visits in the fall and really keep rolling on. Guys like Montravius Adams, our number 3 defensive tackle, who was in Knoxville a few weeks back, Jalen Ramsey, another prominent player from within the state. Those are important players for this program.
Tom Luginbill from ESPN joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports page. We're talking some recruiting and some college football. Tennessee not ranked in the team rankings right now on ESPN.com. No players in the ESPN 150. There are a couple in the ESPN 300. Typically, the label on Derek Dooley in Tennessee has been that he closes strong. That didn't necessarily happen a year ago. And some people have the theory, Tom, that Tennessee has more hinging on its regular season and the results of it than a lot of other schools. Do you agree with that theory?
I think that's a fair assessment. I really do. Recruiting breeds winning and vice versa. And so I think production on the field could prove to have a positive effect in a similar fashion to what it's done for Mark Richt in Georgia. You go back to 2 years ago, and a lot of the same sentiments about that program are being echoed right now around the Tennessee program. Fair, unfair, that's the nature of the business. So results on the field ultimately can paint a huge positive picture for prospective student athletes that are still out there and still, in consideration. And keep in mind, what Tennessee does have is they have a fantastic environment for an official visit on a home game weekend. I mean, that's something that is somewhat unique to them that I think they've got to play to. And then what happens when you make those moves, you got to win those games. I look at what Michigan did a year ago versus Notre Dame. That was a huge turning point in recruiting early in the season because of the environment, because of the outcome of the game. And so you've got to win the game. And I think those things will hopefully play into a positive role for Tennessee and for their fan base.
Nationally, 8 months now from signing day, who would be some of your award winners, teams, or maybe individual recruiters? If you could give out some 8 months till signing day awards right now nationally, who would those go to?
I think Michigan and Brady Hoke, now that his staff has had a full calendar year to become entrenched and lay down their blueprint, you're seeing them just make a huge push, already 22 verbal commitments, which is a high number. That doesn't happen often with them. I think Texas A&M, Kevin Sumlin's done a fantastic job. The team that I would look out for, that I think is really starting to make a push, and it's on the West Coast, is the Washington Huskies. Just this past weekend, 7 verbal commitments in one day. They've really raided the state of California, which is what Washington needs to do to be able to be competitive in the Pac-12, and I think Steve Sarkisian deserves a ton of credit for that. And you know what? Surprisingly, Penn State. Guys, Penn State right now has done a great job, and I really think that Bill O'Brien is selling that blank canvas. Hey, come help us rebuild it. What happened in the past had nothing to do with us. What's going to happen in the future has everything to do with you. And it's becoming, I think, a sentiment that kids are drawn to, and the effects right now have been overly positive with their reaction, already 14 verbal commitments for the Nittany Lions.
Tom Luginbill from ESPN joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports page. Tom, there's some flaws in recruiting that I think are there, but I wanted to get yours. Where do you think we don't have recruiting right, or where are some issues in recruiting, some flaws that you can find right now that if you could change, you would?
Well, I think there's a couple of big ones that really stand out to me. First and foremost, you've got to eliminate all of the periods. Make it very simplified. You're either going to have a dead period, and then you're going to combine, in my opinion, this would be the best thing to do, what's called a contact and evaluation period. Right now, you have a quiet period, a dead period, a contact period, evaluation period. They're all different times. Some overlap. Let's make it cut and dry. Let's slow the process down. Let's have a contact and evaluation period be all in one, and then have a dead period where nobody can do anything, and it's all the same for everybody. I also believe that sooner or later the NCAA and the guidelines, they have got to keep up with how technology is controlling prospective student-athletes' lives right now. Kids don't pick up the phone. Kids don't do email. What do? They tweet. They Facebook. They do all the things in their world that coaches oftentimes are not allowed to do. We've got to allow the coaches to be able to communicate in the manner in which these prospects communicate. And I think lastly, and this is the one to me that's most important, I believe that we've got to start allowing official visits at different times of the year and not just in the fall. And the reason why I say that is if you're forcing coaches to offer guys early and the process has become so accelerated, you're oftentimes forcing them to do it without having all the information. Allow the coaches to be able to research and have more face-to-face contact with these kids before they're put in a position where they've got to offer the kid, and maybe they don't have all the available information, but they've got to offer them just to be in the race. And to me, that would eliminate a lot of errors and a lot of misses in recruiting if you gave these coaches the opportunity to truly research these kids more than just have to offer to be in the race.
Well, Tom, to piggyback off that, isn't it happening now where the schools are holding these camps, which are basically tryouts, so they can see them face to face, and then if the kids can't make it on these unofficial visits to the camps, they don't get an offer, because that's happening with Tennessee. Players are coming to the camps, then suddenly they get an offer, they verbally commit, and it basically what they had on tape doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, and vice versa. I would also say the coaches want to get those kids to come to camp, and they won't come without an offer.
Right.
And it's so it works both ways. I just believe this thing's become so rapid, it's become so accelerated that it leads to errors in evaluation, and errors in evaluation lead to coaches getting fired. And if there was a way to slow it down, if there were a way to allow the coaches to get away from the game, have a longer extended dead period, not have players, being offered at a time when there's so much physical development to go on and there's a lot that you don't know yet, I think it would benefit everybody. And it's very frustrating because the camp setting on campus is a huge determining factor in the evaluation process. So the challenge is getting them to camp first and foremost, and then deciding whether or not you feel like offering them before you get them to camp is the best thing to do. I just think it creates a lot of unnecessary challenges, and it can be very unfair to the coaches, but I think it can be unfair to the players as well. But right now, keep in mind, guys, during the process, the players control it. The coaches don't. And that's the real challenge for college coaches right now.
Tom, your role is ever expanding and developing at ESPN. What can we see from you on ESPN this fall? Has it been determined?
Well, yeah, I just signed a new television contract, and so you'll be seeing me with a lot of college football studio stuff. I'll still be broadcasting our high school games on our family of networks, but particularly with ESPNU, you'll probably see me 5 to 6 days a week in some form of studio programming, whether it be college football or recruiting. And then, certainly the Under Armour All-America game, we select the roster for that and devote 10 hours of television to that in January, and a Recruiting Nation show every Thursday on ESPNU. So I go from being heavy evaluation from February all the way through to August to being almost entirely television throughout the fall with a little college football mixed in, which kind of changes it up a little bit. It's pretty good.
You do a great job, Tom. We really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for doing it, and we'll catch up with you hopefully soon.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That is Tom Luginbill, at Tom Luginbill on Twitter, by the way. And you get more from Tom and, of course, ESPN, ESPN.com.